What's up, fellow adult collectors? Welcome to SeViLion Collectibles. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the McFarlane Toys Spawn, based on his appearance in the Mortal Kombat 11 video game. This figure began showing up in some stores during the month of March, but because of the current pandemic, it started having delays and distribution issues. Personally, I've never even seen it in any of my local stores, and I'm sure that's a common problem for many collectors. I ended up having to pay one of the higher priced eBay sellers to finally get this in my possession. As you can see, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on the boxes, so with it now out of the package, I'm going to give it another full rotation on the spinner, that way you can see it all the way around. Once that is complete, I'll get into all the details about this Spawn figure. If this is your first time landing on my channel, hi, my name is SeViLion, and here I like to discuss action figures and other collectibles based on my favorite movies, TV shows, and video games. If you find this video enjoyable or informative, please give me a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Just real quick before I totally discard the box, here's the barcode to aid in your hunt. Just in case some of you are not aware, this figure will be getting a reissue later on this year, but instead of the sword, it'll come with a mace. As of this recording, the reissue is currently available on Amazon for pre-order and shows a release date of August 28th. The figure itself shouldn't change much at all, if any, so with that said, let's take a good close up and down look at both the front and back. In a recent interview I watched with Todd McFarlane himself, he said that in the process of making this figure, as well as all the other Mortal Kombat 11 figures for that matter, NetherRealm Studios sent the 3D computer-generated images straight from their computers to McFarlane Toys for the process of creating the sculpts, and that couldn't be more obvious here. The sculpting detail of this figure is spot on when comparing it to the MK11 version of this character. The symbiotic nature of Spawn's design is captured very well in the texture of the sculpt. Each colored area has its own feel. The black does not feel like the white, the cape does not feel like the main body, and the armor is smooth compared to it all. Most of the figure is a solid sturdy plastic, but the cape and the chains are more of a softer rubber material. The crotch piece below the waistline is the same way. If you own any of the recent DC Multiverse figures, it's very similar to the trunks on Superman or Batman. The cape itself is highly impressive with all the different details of the sculpt showcasing the different layers of the cape. The black wash over the red just brings out those details even more. Underneath the cape, there's still not a single detail left out. There's even another skull on the back of his chains. Most of the splits and separations for the articulation cuts blend right into the overall sculpt. The sword accessory looks just as good. The different colors of the sword perfectly match the colors on Spawn himself. Personally, I can't really say that I understand why the sword is being discontinued and replaced with the mace later this year, but I'm glad to have the sword. With all that said though, I'm going to put the sword back down so I can go over Spawn's articulation. The head itself doesn't have a whole lot of range, but it can look up, down, and side to side. The cape really gets in the way though. The shoulders can spin all the way around as well as move backwards, but again, the cape is pretty restrictive. On the plus side though, the shoulders do have some good butterfly joints, which does help with the front to back movement. The biceps do have full rotation, and the elbows are double jointed, but the different size gauntlets does make that fold a bit inconsistent. The torso is connected by two separate ball joints, one above the abs and one below the abs, making the centerpiece independent. This does allow for a pretty good range of motion in all directions, but not as good as I've seen on other figures. The hips spread out really far sideways, and with just a little bit of a twist, kick forward and back really far as well. The knees are double jointed. The right leg with the boot folds pretty well, and then left leg is even better. The ankles do have a full range of rotation and pivot motion along with the toe joint, but this is a little hard to see and operate on the right leg with the boot. Unfortunately, while I was going through this articulation process, the black paint on the softer crotch piece began to chip and break away. Over time, this could get worse and worse, so I'm going to have to call it a quality control issue, but for now, it's pretty small and not really noticeable from far away shots. Next up, I'm going to do some comparisons with other figures. First, the only other Spawn figure I actually own. The one on the left here is from the original Spawn movie in 1997, and that's actually what got me into Spawn in the first place. The MK11 version is clearly much larger, better looking, and more articulated. Next, I have two more McFarlane MK11 figures, Johnny Cage and Raiden, and unfortunately, this shows that Spawn is out of scale. Spawn is supposed to be a 7-foot character. Johnny Cage is only supposed to be 6 foot. But here, Spawn looks like he's just a little bit shorter than Johnny Cage, which is not right at all. To have the heights totally correct, Johnny Cage should be the shortest, and then Raiden be in the middle, and then Spawn being the tallest. He should also be taller than both Batman and the Joker, but as you can see, that's not the case here. For it to really be in scale, Spawn should just about be the same height as Jason Voorhees is here. Anyway, just in case you want to see him next to other lines, here he is next to Storm Collectibles, Mattel WWE and DC Multiverse, Hasbro's Star Wars Black Series, Power Rangers Lightning Collection, and finally, the NECA Ninja Turtles. So, with all that said, it's time to run this McFarlane Toys Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn figure through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. This is a brand new sculpt that is highly detailed and incredibly accurate to the in-game character. It does have more than 20 points of articulation, balances really well, and includes the sword accessory. Unfortunately, it is out of scale with other Mortal Kombat characters, and it did have that problem with the paint chipping. The roughly $20 price point would be fair for this figure if you could actually find it at a retail establishment for that price. Leading my final score to a 7 out of 10 star rating, meaning it's still a pretty amazing figure and worth owning for all fans of the character. So while I certainly can recommend adding this figure to your collection, if you can hold out for the Mace version, that would probably be your best bet. During the process of making this video, I did happen to notice this version of the figure appear on Amazon for a brief period. It was there for a day or two, but now it's gone again. So unless you just happen to catch it in that window, I'd say it's best to just go ahead and pre-order the Mace version instead. When that version does become available, I'll probably go ahead and get it too, just so I can compare it and ensure that they are the same figure.